My boyfriend, who I've known since we were kids, confessed to me that just 1 week before our wedding, he had cheated on me with my sister and she was pregnant. But 2 years later, I found out the baby wasn't his and now he wants to come back. 2 years ago, I had to call off my engagement because my fiancé had cheated on me with my sister. This happened right before our wedding, and just 3 days ago, he had the audacity to try to return. Jason, a fake name, and I had known each other since childhood. We went to the same school and started dating when we were both 14. After being together for nearly 12 years, we decided to get engaged. It felt like the right thing to do, and he was the one who proposed. Honestly, I had no reason to suspect that he was cheating, especially not with my sister. Lily, another fake name, my younger sister, was 2 years younger than me and we were practically best friends. Even for my wedding she was supposed to be my maid of honor. But that never happened. A few weeks after we got engaged, I started noticing that Jason's behavior had become strange. It was small things like him being distracted when talking about the wedding, and he seemed to avoid discussing it altogether. He spent a lot of time at work and I just felt like he didn't want to see me. It was odd. I tried talking to him several times, asking if he had any doubts about the wedding, and told him we could postpone it to another time. But he reassured me that he wanted to get married and kept saying that for nearly 8 months. But I guess he found the courage to tell me the truth just 1 week before the wedding. Maybe it was because my sister was pregnant, or maybe it was something else that pushed him to confess. Either way, when he told me, it shattered me. And the worst part was, with her being pregnant, he was planning to marry her. According to Jason, they had always had some flirtation between them whenever they met, but it was only a recent development. He never told me because he thought it was harmless. However, one night while drinking with his friends, he ran into Lily. And that was it. They both got drunk, ended up sleeping together, and promised not to do it again. But it happened several times after that, and by the time we were engaged they were having a full affair. Jason said he thought getting engaged to me would stop it, but it didn't. He tried to make it sound like they didn't have control over the situation, but I didn't believe him. The day Jason told me the truth, that he had been having an affair with Lily for the past year, I gave him the engagement ring back and told him to move out. I guess he was prepared for it because he had already packed his bags and left without saying a word. After that, I didn't speak to my sister because I really had nothing to say to her. With only a week left before the wedding, I knew a lot of money had been spent, but I told Jason to handle it because I wasn't going to spend anything. Obviously, I was heartbroken, so I stayed home for the next few days. Lily came to visit me a couple of days after I found out, but she had to leave without seeing me because I didn't want anything to do with her. She left a note saying she was sorry, but it meant nothing to me. Neither of them could undo what they had done, and the truth was she was going to have a baby with the man I loved. In situations like this, most people would expect their family to be there for them, but instead, my parents chose to support Lily as if she were the victim. I don't know what they were thinking. But on the day of the wedding, my parents called me in the morning to ask how I was doing. They had been doing that every day since I found out about Jason and Lily. We were talking casually, and then, suddenly, they told me that Jason and Lily were getting married in a private ceremony and that they were going to be there. That was a shock to me because after they found out about the affair, my parents had been furious and told me they would never speak to Lily again. But now, suddenly, they were telling me they would be there to bless the union between my ex-fiancé and my sister. When I didn't respond, they started explaining that, although they were upset with Lily, she had begged them to attend because she didn't want to marry without their support. She was also 6 weeks pregnant and in an emotional state, so my parents felt they had to be there for her and hoped I would understand. I told them one thing: they could go to her wedding if they wanted, but I would never speak to them again. They tried to tell me I was being unfair, but honestly at that point I didn't care. So in the end, my parents told me they would attend the wedding and that I could be angry if I wanted. After all, Lily was their daughter and they couldn't avoid that. Since then, 2 years have passed and I have never spoken to Lily or my parents again. Gradually, the rest of the family found out what happened because, of course, it's not something that can stay a secret for long. Once they knew, they spoke to me and I told them the truth about everything. Now, very few people in our family maintain a relationship with my parents or with Lily. I didn't know what they were doing, but thanks to Jason now I do. 3 days ago, I was about to leave for work in the morning when Jason showed up. It was a huge surprise because I hadn't seen him in 2 years, and I hadn't heard anything about him since I told all my friends I didn't want to know what he was up to. Seeing him standing outside my door left me almost speechless. He took the opportunity to tell me he was there to apologize for everything that had happened in the past and to ask if I would consider giving our relationship a second chance. To be honest, I was completely frozen. This was the first time I had seen him since our horrible breakup, and I had done everything I could to avoid seeing him. So for him to be standing outside my door after 2 years was a bit surreal. He kept talking when I didn't say anything, and he told me that his relationship with Lily had turned out to be a sham, and that he regretted ever being with her. He told me that if she hadn't been pregnant, he never would have married her. Now they were getting a divorce because he had recently discovered the baby wasn't even his. Apparently, Jason had found messages on Lily's phone. He had suspected she was having an affair with someone else because of her strange behavior. He secretly checked her phone and discovered that for the last few years she had been having a relationship with her boss. She had been married to Jason for just over 2 years, but had been in an on and off affair with her boss for almost 4 years. When he confronted her about the messages, she broke down and admitted everything. She said she had tried to get over her boss and forget him, but since he had been her first boyfriend, she just couldn't let him go. It was a pretty unpleasant revelation because, as far as I knew, Lily had started working at the company when she was 22, and her boss, who was already in his late 30s, was married with a 2-year-old son. Jason told me that when he confronted her about the messages, she came clean and said that, in recent months, she and her boss had worked things out. He had decided to leave his wife for her, and eventually she told him the truth about her pregnancy. Jason, unfortunately, was not the father. He even did a paternity test to confirm it. So now, not only was he getting divorced, but he was also going to lose his son, even though he had requested at least partial custody. The boss, however, was very influential and well-connected, so Jason wasn't sure how the situation would play out. Jason was there to tell me all of this and to try to fix things with me because he thought all of this was karma for how he had treated me. Now he felt he needed to apologize and wanted to ask me if I would consider reconciling with him, giving our relationship a second chance. He said we had been together for so long, and the last 2 years had just been a big mistake for him. By that point, I had processed a lot of things, and when he asked me if I wanted to get back together, I literally laughed in his face. It was a cruel thing to do, but I was fine with being cruel. He looked surprised after I laughed, and I told him that what was happening to him at that moment was exactly what he deserved. He had cheated on me with the person who was supposed to be the closest to me in the world, and now that same person had cheated on him. Life had come full circle, and I couldn't be happier about it. Then, to add salt to the wound, I told him I hoped he didn't get anything from the divorce and that he lost custody of his son, because maybe then he'd realize how horrible he had made me feel. After saying that, I told him to leave my front yard and slammed the door in his face. I went back inside to my room and started getting ready for work, but in the end, I didn't go to work at all. I was too shaken by what had just happened. It's been 3 days since then, and I had managed to forget about that conversation with Jason and push him out of my mind. But this morning, Jason's parents called me. I hadn't had a chance to speak to them after my breakup with Jason, but I hadn't blocked them or anything. It felt strange for them to reach out after 2 years, but they had been kind to me before everything fell apart, so I decided to answer. I knew they wouldn't call unless it was something urgent. When I answered the phone, Jason's mom told me she knew Jason had come to see me 3 days ago, but she really needed to know what we had talked about. Since he came back from seeing me, he had locked himself in his room and refused to come out, not even to eat. He spent the whole day crying and only came out after everyone had gone to sleep to eat, without talking to anyone. Apparently, he had been refusing to speak to anyone and kept saying he deserved everything that was happening to him. In short, he was a mess, pathetic, and his parents were worried, so they decided to call me since I was the last person he had seen before this happened. I felt a bit bad because his mom was such a kind woman, and she seemed really concerned about her son, but I didn't want to lie to her. So, I told her exactly what I had said to Jason, and she stayed silent for a couple of minutes. Then she told me that just 2 weeks before, she had found out that Lily had cheated on him, and that had been hard enough for him to handle. But now, to make matters worse, she discovered that the child he had been raising wasn't even his son. That really affected him, and he was terrified of losing custody of the boy since he wasn't biologically related to him. Plus, Lily's boss was in a position of power, so Jason was really paranoid and anxious. He had been talking about how all of this was karma for how he had treated me, and in fact, it was his mom who suggested he should speak to me and try to fix things, though she hadn't told him to come back to me. I think everyone knows I wouldn't accept him back. After explaining the situation, Jason's mom told me that she knew Jason had made mistakes and had been a horrible partner to me, but she just needed me to forgive him, or at least tell him I forgave him even if I didn't mean it. She said it would help him feel a little better about himself and find the strength to fight through the hardships. That's when she started breaking down. I felt a little sorry for her and I didn't want her to cry, so I told her I'd think about it. But the truth is, I've thought about it, and I have no intention of telling her that I forgive him, even if it's just to say it. I don't want to say it because I don't feel it. I don't forgive him and I don't think I ever will. I just don't have it in me, but saying it to his mom will be very hard for me, and I feel like this might be an overreaction right now, but it's how I feel. So, would I be the bad one if I told my ex-fiancé's mother that I don't forgive him and that I won't tell him either? Update 1. Thank you so much for all the comments and support. It's been 2 days since Jason's mother contacted me, and I've decided that the next time she asks me if I'm willing to talk to him or not, I'll simply say no. After reading the comments and talking to some close friends and family, I realized that I'm not obligated to be kind to Jason. The only reason I felt guilty and questioned my decision was because I'm a normal person, and people often find it hard to set boundaries, even when they are well deserved. I feel much better with my decision now, and I'm sure I'm not the bad one. Talking with my friends about the situation was a good decision for another reason. While talking with them, we found out that the future ex-wife of Lily's boss is related to a friend's girlfriend. She's a distant cousin, but there's some relation. We discovered that she and her husband had been in an open marriage for the last few years, so technically her boss hadn't been cheating. Lily was the only one who had made the mistake. The only reason her boss had stayed with his wife was to avoid the whole child support situation. He wasn't actually interested in divorcing. He just wanted to keep seeing Lily secretly without anything serious. Apparently, Lily had threatened to expose the affair, so he was forced to file for divorce. If Lily had made the affair public, his reputation would have been seriously damaged. After all, she still worked at the same company and he was still her boss. Although almost everyone knows about their relationship, people pretend it isn't happening. Once their respective divorces are finalized, they will keep everything a secret for a couple of months before finally revealing the truth. The ex-wife is pretty calm about it all and has even been gossiping about her life, which is how my friend's girlfriend found out, although she's not exactly close to the woman. The gossip has spread widely in the family. Apparently, the ex-wife didn't oppose the divorce but was demanding child support and alimony, which is well deserved. So it makes sense. I wish Lily had made better choices and maybe her life wouldn't be what it is now, but as long as she's happy, I guess it's okay. Update 2. It's been almost a week since I last spoke to Jason's mom. 2 days after my last update, she called me to ask if I had made a decision, and I told her that, whatever the reason, I wasn't going to tell Jason that I forgive him because I really don't. I don't think I owe him that just because he's upset about what's going on in his life. I also felt devastated when he left me after cheating on me with my sister, but no one was there for me, and that experience really hardened me. Now, I just don't have the capacity to feel sorry for Jason, the guy who hurt me in the worst possible way and left me with trust issues for life. Instead of accepting this, his mother started arguing with me, saying that the conversation with me had caused Jason to completely fall apart, and now it was my responsibility to fix it. She said I couldn't just ignore it and pretend it didn't matter because Jason was still in shock and refusing to talk to his family due to what I had told him. I found it ridiculous that she was blaming me for his breakdown. I had only been honest with him and I told him he deserved everything that was happening to him. If he really thought I would forgive him after one meeting, he was very wrong and that wasn't my fault. Then his mom started expressing how disappointed she was with my behavior because she had always treated me like a daughter, the daughter she never had, and she was just asking for this small favor for her son, and I wasn't even willing to do that for her. This really upset me because, yes, she had been very kind to me when I was with Jason, but after that, we hadn't spoken at all. If she really considered me the daughter she never had, at least she would have called me once after her son broke my heart. But she never bothered. So I told her that I was also quite disappointed by that, and since she didn't have a response to that, she said it was my family's responsibility to take care of me and worry about me, not hers. It didn't even make sense because she had just said she had always treated me like a daughter, and I knew she was talking nonsense at that point because she had no logical arguments. So, I simply told her that I had made my decision, and she had to respect it, then hung up. After that, she tried to contact me for a couple of days until today, when I returned home from work at around 5:45 p.m. At about 7 she showed up at my house. I was preparing dinner, expecting a quiet night, so I really didn't feel like talking to her. When I saw it was her outside the door, I told her to leave and she said she wouldn't go without talking to me. This really bothered me because I had made it clear the last time we spoke that I had no intention of talking to Jason again. I could understand that he was going through a tough time, but since we weren't together anymore, it was no longer my problem. I told her once again that if she thought bothering me repeatedly would make me change my mind, she was wrong. All it would do is annoy me even more and maybe even make me call the police, which I really didn't want to do because she was an older person, and I had always respected her. I told her not to make me do something she wouldn't like because I didn't want to be in that position. At that moment, she started crying outside my door and said she just didn't know what to do because it seemed like Jason had given up on everything, and she couldn't see her son falling apart like that. As a mother, it hurt her to see him like that, and she felt that I was the only person who could fix it, so that's why she was so desperate to talk to me. I really felt bad for her, so that's when I opened the door, trying to be as kind as possible. I invited her in, offered her a glass of water to calm her down because she was clearly in very bad shape, and I gently explained that I could understand it was very hard for her to see her son suffer so much, but honestly, he also had his flaws, and he wasn't really someone who could help here after everything he'd done to me. I simply didn't have the ability to see him again because I knew that just seeing him would make me angry. She tried to tell me to just give him another chance, but I told her that wouldn't be possible for me because I also had to take care of myself. What he did to me 2 years ago was simply unacceptable, and I hadn't recovered from it since. I hadn't even gone on a date since then because I just couldn't. He really had affected me permanently, so I wasn't going to make any extra effort to try to be kind to that person. The most I could do for him was stay out of his way and never speak to him again. She had to understand and respect that because even though she was his mother, she knew how terribly he had treated me, and it was unfair for her to ask me to help him. When I explained all this kindly, she seemed to understand. After a couple of minutes of silence, she said she was really sorry for bothering me, but she just didn't know what else to do. Then she left, and since then I've been alone. Glad I was able to handle the situation with her without involving the police or anything like that, because I really wouldn't have wanted that. Anyway, after she left, I finished preparing dinner and was about to sit down with some wine to watch a movie when I got a text from Jason. It was from a new phone because I had blocked him everywhere. About an hour and a half after his mother left my house, he messaged me saying that she had gotten home and they had talked. He said he was really grateful for the way I treated his mother with kindness, even though his family had only caused me problems. He told me that, for what it's worth, he was truly sorry for what had happened and that he could fully understand why I said I deserved all this because I really did. He said this would be the last message he'd send me because from now on he was going to try to be a better man, so maybe one day he'd be the kind of person who deserved to be with me. That made me cry a little because even though I didn't want anything to do with him, at one point he had been my whole world, and it just hurt that he had ruined things for us like this. But there wasn't much we could do at this point, so I just saved the message because I knew reading it over and over again would only bring me more pain. I went back to my dinner and hoped everything would be okay. Now, an update. It's been 2 weeks since my last post, and this time it's not about me, it's about Lily. Fortunately, everything is going well in my life right now. Jason and his family have kept their promises and haven't bothered me since that last meeting with his mother, so I've been able to get back to my normal life. However, I just heard some really juicy gossip from my friend, whose girlfriend is related to the ex-wife of Lily's boss. Well, I guess I should refer to her as his wife now because I don't think they're going to divorce. Apparently, a few days ago, Lily's boss decided to cancel the divorce and told her they couldn't continue with the affair because he had decided to fix his life and go back to his wife. Obviously, she was ready to make a scene about it, posting things and all that, but he bribed her. She had to sign a confidentiality agreement and leave her job, but she got a lot of money for it, so she'll be fine for a while. I think she'll agree to share custody of her son with Jason, which would be fair because regardless of who his real biological father is, Jason has been raising him for so long. It's crazy how things turned out for them, but they're still divorcing and no amount of money will make up for the fact that she lost both men. It's a shame that she was such a terrible person and still got away with it, but I guess that's just how the world works. But honestly, I don't care. I'm happy with my life and my work, and I know I'm living an honest life, not trying to be a homewrecker in any way. I'm glad Jason and I didn't end up married, and that Lily is no longer part of my life because, honestly, it was for the best. Update number 4. I'm doing this. Update because a lot of people have been asking about my parents and all this. I haven't spoken to them in years, but I do talk to some relatives who I asked not to tell me anything. However, now I've been finding out because it was a question that kept coming up, especially about what they thought of all this with my sister. Well, my parents knew and didn't know. They knew my sister was getting a divorce from Jason, but they didn't know the baby was from her boss. According to their version, my sister and Jason were having problems. They even told Lily to try to fix things before going down that path. Of course, they didn't know about the infidelity or the paternity fraud. The worst part is that they found out when the person who asked about me told them. This person didn't know about it either because when I asked what they knew about my parents and my sister's infidelity, she was completely shocked. From what I know, my parents didn't know either. That's it, and no, my parents didn't favor my sister. At least they never treated us differently. If I had to guess, I'd say they wanted a grandchild, which is why they supported my sister. Update number 5. It hasn't even been a week since the last update about my parents, and I already have to do another one because of what's happened with them and Lily. As I said, they didn't know the details about Lily, but now that they do, they've had a conversation with her, and it ended pretty badly between them. My parents must have found their hearts because now they think what Lily did was pretty bad, but not what she did to me. I mean, they think it was wrong that Lily lied to her husband about the baby, but not that she slept with her sister's fiancé. What a bunch of crazy people. If I had to guess, my parents are a bit old-fashioned, so they care more about the broken marriage than the infidelity itself. At least it makes me feel better about cutting ties with them back then. This whole situation is just too toxic.